Says we are live. All right, hey everybody, how you all doing? Josh Null here with Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. I'm coming to you from downtown Fairhope. I'm joined once again, some of you all may recognize his smiling face, Matthew Eickman. He's the National Retirement Practice Leader for Qualified Plan Advisors. Just a quick reminder, my practice, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, is part of the independent network of Qualified Plan Advisors and Prime Capital Investment Advisors. So with that said, Matthew, how are you doing?
I'm good, Josh. Thanks for having me on today. How you doing?
Well, good. I didn't get a chance in our pre-game warm-up to tell you, kind of missed talking to you. We got a little bit of rhythm there.
Yeah.
So it felt good to break out the microphone and get my little stand going so I could join you once again. Matthew, we're going to talk about something specific today. It's kind of a good progression from the recent things that we wrapped up with our 401k series, and that is the Qualified Plan Advisors, Qualified Plan Fiduciary Summit coming up next week. So I wanted to kick that off. If you could tell the people that are watching us, join us on this video, what is the virtual Qualified Plan Fiduciary Summit?
Yeah. Well, about 12 years ago, our founder, Scott Colangelo, decided that it would be a good idea to have a very strong educational event every year. And so went out and found probably the nation's most well-known ERISA attorney in Fred Reich, and got a representative from the Department of Labor, and started bringing in really good speakers to make the event really strong. And what we've seen is that over the years, other organizations have tried to do something kind of like this, but they typically get pretty small groups, attending that annual event. And last year we were kind of in the neighborhood of about 250 to 275 people in person last year. Well, as you might imagine, we struggled a little bit to pull off an in-person event this year, of course. And so we'd moved the June event to October, hoping that things would normalize by October, and of course they really haven't. And so we're going to do it virtually. We're going to run a 3-hour event next week where we're going to be able to give people that opportunity that they always have, which is to get that education, but without having to leave their desks or their home offices or their kitchen tables or their garages or wherever they're working. So we're excited about that.
Well, and I'll say this, this is the 12th annual summit that you've done. And as you mentioned, previously it was in person. And I'm sure every year there's been hot buttons and there's been topics that have been top of mind for plan sponsors across the United States. I think in particular this year, it obviously has changed where you're having to do it virtual. But on the flip side of that, you've got some things that are as pertinent, as important as they ever have been in this type of event.
Yeah, certainly. We're going to be able to be incredibly timely with this, and I mean, we've even been adapting on the specific touch points on the agenda even up until the last 30 minutes, frankly. And so we want to be timely. We want to recognize that fiduciaries across the country have all sorts of other new challenges and demands on their time, trying to figure out how to work in this kind of new normal we're facing. And a lot of that relates to how the company's running. But Josh, as you and I have been talking over the last several weeks, there's some real issues they need to address with the retirement plan. And what this event will allow us to do is to give people that opportunity to hear those perspectives on a handful of very important, pertinent, timely topics that should be a real good opportunity for plan sponsors, human resource professionals, benefits managers, CFOs, controllers, business owners, et cetera.
Perfect. Well, Matthew, I know we've got a ton of great presenters we're going to highlight, but before we do that, can we run over some of the topics that are going to be covered at the summit?
Sure. What we did is, and Josh, you and I kind of worked through over the last, few weeks, kind of looking at the high points for fiduciaries and coming up with like the 5 things that fiduciaries really needed to be focusing on as they move through the rest of the year. And we took a somewhat similar approach when we pulled this agenda together. What we said is, if we're pulling in plan sponsor representatives and they're trying to get education in the course of about 3 hours, where can we give them the education they need? And these are the 5 areas that we settled on. First, it's data security. And if we think about how information is moving so much differently now than it was 7, 8, 9 months ago, we can see why that's absolutely critical. So we'll start with a data security analysis. And then we're going to talk about asset management, recognizing, as the market was moving up and down and as participants were worried about how their investments would behave, it became even more important to make sure people had a sound strategy and understood what that was. And so we're going to talk about asset management. And then we're going to revitalize the topic that you and I have talked about a handful of times over the last several weeks, and that's financial wellness. Really recognizing, what are providers doing in response to employees and employers' growing desire to have more of that wellness education. And then the last couple of topics are going to be more risk avoidant or regulatory in nature. I'm going to start with a look at the ongoing trends in ERISA litigation. We're going to have litigators in to talk about what's happening in the courts, and then we're going to have a couple of practitioners saying, knowing that, what do we do in practice to implement best practices to address those concerns? And then finally, the last session is called The IRS and DOL Have Been Busy. And we're going to talk about really the things that the IRS and the DOL continue to do, not just the CARES Act guidance, which you and I have talked about a fair amount, but what are the other projects that the government continue to push through? So it's going to be a filled up session for sure, with a lot of information in a short period of time.
Well, and Matthew, the agenda, you all can see at the scroll at the bottom of the screen. You can register and find more information on my website, /401k-forum. At that landing page, you're also going to see quite a bit of 401k and qualified plan content that Matthew and I produced over the last several weeks. So definitely check that out. And Matthew, one of the things on the agenda that I noticed, I love this. I love when I can tell that there's going to be built-in urgency to this summit. I mean, not only do you have several fantastic topics in a relatively condensed time period, but you got some names that pop off the page there. You want to talk about a few of the presenters that you got that are going to be joining the summit?
Yeah, once we decided those key topics, we went out with each specific topic and sought out experts in that area, rather than going oppositely where somebody might have a partner out there and say, hey, do you want to come and talk about something? We instead decided we knew what the key topics were for fiduciaries, and we went out and found the experts to make sure we can get that information. So data security, we're going to hear from a couple of record keepers, and then it'll be moderated by our Houston practice leader, Rob Massa, who's an expert in the data security area. And then when we get into the investment management, we've got investment experts coming from Fidelity Investments and American Century Investments, and as well as in-house with us, Prime Capital and Qualified Plan Advisors. On the financial wellness side, we have the president of Financial Fitness for Life, Christian Mango, and he's going to be joined by Jessica Ruggles from Prudential, who's an expert in the field of financial wellness. And then we've got, as I mentioned earlier, that we've got a panel of ERISA litigators, partners at a national ERISA law firm that are going to come in and talk about those types of litigation issues, and then we'll have the best practices. And then even when we get into the IRS and DOL developments, we've got a lifetime income expert from Lincoln Financial who's going to talk about lifetime income issues. And we've got an expert on pooled employer plans or multiple employer plans from Securian who's going to join us. And so, the name that a lot of people will know from this is Fred Reish, and his handprints are all over this entire event. Fred's so big on the ability to have real good education, to be conversational and to be practical about that, but also to make sure we have really smart people delivering those types of messages. And I feel really confident we have that here.
Well, I noticed, Matthew, that you listed in your description there, you listed a lot of the sponsors for the events. Any couple words you want to say about the hosts or some of the affiliated sponsors?
Well, it's a real credit. A lot of these sponsors have been a big part of the event we've had in person for the longest time. We always have a big dinner the night before, and American Century is always a huge part of that. And Fidelity, for example, is helping with a couple of panels here, and they've been a keynote sponsor in the past. But really, all these other companies that have kind of said, hey, we want to be a part of this on an educational perspective. And remember, a lot of times what happens is if you're a vendor, if you will, if you're a service provider, you think you got to get a booth where you can hand out highlighters and pens and markers and little sponge balls and stuff, right, to get people's attention. These are just outside partners of ours who have said, we want to be a part of this educational event without that type of, typical meet and greet, handshaking, kiss and babies types of opportunities. So we appreciate that because it's a much more genuine, I think, sign of partnership to know they just want to pitch in and help give our clients and our prospective clients that education. So we really appreciate all of them being involved.
Very good. Well, I'm going to give you the last word, but I got one more thing to say. So those of you all in my network that are watching this video or seeing some of the related promotional materials, if you are interested in this event, you can find all of the information, the agenda, the registration link, all of that at my website that's scrolling at the bottom of this video, gulfcoastfa.com/401k-forum. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're going to go to that landing page, keep scrolling down. You're going to see some really timely and relevant conversations and content that Matthew and I have put out. Much credit to him, some of the materials that he brought to the table. And also, too, if you're in my network, if you are along the Gulf Coast where we serve, and we specifically deal with the needs of business owners and plan sponsors in this space. If you're in this area, I I cannot tell you how important it would be. Carve out 3 hours of your day next Wednesday, October 14th, from 10 a.m. Central Time to 1 p.m. It's going to be jam-packed. There's going to be great speakers, great content, and I'm sure, knowing Matthew like I do, it won't just be a one-and-done type event. There'll be all kinds of fantastic follow-up that comes after it. So, Matthew, I'm going to give you the final word, and then I'll close this particular video down.
Well, no, I think that's a pretty good close, Josh. I do hope people will take the time to come and do it. And for those who want SHRM credits, we've got 3 free SHRM credits as a part of this. For those of you who say, gosh, I've got something on my calendar in the middle there, but I'm otherwise available, get out there, sign up, get it on your calendar, come in and join us as much as you can. If you have to hop off, hop back in. It'll be worth your time. The presenters are going to be really, really good. And if you've been paying attention to with the information that Josh has been sharing, you can kind of sense this is like that next step as you as a fiduciary say, I want to continue to improve myself as a fiduciary. I want to continue to understand what it is that I need to be doing. And that's the opportunity we're bringing here. So we love big crowds for these things. We love to be able to share all this information with as many as we can. And Josh, I hope we see you there, if nothing else, as part of this. I know you will be there, and I hope we've got other people who come and join us.
Well, Matthew, as always, I appreciate you jumping on and helping not only promote a wonderful event, but also just help show my network and the clients and the potential clients that I serve down here along the Gulf Coast, really the power and the expertise of the partnership that I have with Qualified Plan Advisors. So thank you again for that. Thank you all that have joined us. Again, you will see at the bottom of the screen, scrolling to my website. That's where you can register and find more information. GulfCoastFA.com/401k-form. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.